أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على نبي بعد سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربي لا تؤاخذني مما يقولون واغفر لي ما لا يعلمون وجعلني خيرا مما يظنون. Amma ba'd. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome to another blessed day of Jumu'ah in the year 1446 after the Hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Welcome to the House of Dua, the platform from which you learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about His creation, about His message, about His messenger, and of course about His chosen religion known as Al-Islam, and the platform from which you learn how to live and be happy in the world we live today and how to return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in expectation of greater happiness on the day of accountability. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, today we are coming to share with you the value of spending and spending to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indeed, it has been a matter of concern for some of us to find that there are many people in the world we live that have no happiness, even though the means of getting that happiness are at their disposal. Some also are struggling, and even though the means are very scarce for them, but still they are contented, they are happy, they are pleased. They live a more peaceful life than those who have, but they don't have contentment, they don't have happiness. So what is responsible for this? As we have stated time and time again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just interested in how we make our wealth, but is also interested in how we spend it. If you have good health, you have means of livelihood, you have all other things going well with you, but there is absence of contentment or happiness, then you need to check your sources of wealth and how you spend that wealth. Because the way you make your wealth and the way you spend it could make or unmake you. This is why it's important for us to continue to bring this matter to the forefront of all of us so that we discuss it and understand it. Welcome to our series known as the 3D series, on where we bring you verses of divine, deep, and definite message. Verses in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala communicated definite messages to us using some specific language, especially examples, similitudes, or metaphors to draw home and make the message much more understandable and deeper in meaning, more than what the literary meaning of the words are. This is the essence of this part of our presentation at the House of Dua, because there are many of us who just read the Quran from page to page and they don't understand what they are reading. There are some who read it, they understand, but they just understand the literary interpretation of what they are reading. So they are not able to comprehend the message. So today we are trying to share with you verse 261 of Surah Al-Baqarah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares, Bada'uzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Mathalu alladhina yunfikuna amwalahum fi sabilillah kamathali habbatin anbatat sab'a sanabil fi kulli sunbulatin mi'atu habba Wallahu yudha'ifu liman yasha. Wallahu wasi'un alim. The example, the similitude, the comparison of the one or those who spend in the way of Allah. You have to understand that in the way of Allah, it's like a grain of corn that is planted. And that grain of corn grows up and produces 7 ears of corn. And in each ear of corn, there are 100 grains, which means 1 grain of corn that the person sowed has produced 700 grains. This is expenditure that you make, and in return, you get 700 times of what you have spent. That cannot be a bad investment. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used the item a grain. On the surface of it, you look at it to be just a grain of corn, but it's much more than that. It means whatever you spend to please Allah. It means spending your time, spending your money, spending your energy, spending your skills to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah says, fi sabilillah, that is money or wealth or things you do to help somebody perform the Hajj, for example, or to help to prosecute a jihad, a war of self-defense to make sure the deen of Islam survives. Or not a war, but to help to advance the cause of Islam, maybe giving scholarship to children to study the Quran. Or expenditure you make to help those who are disadvantaged in the society, the orphans, the handicapped, whether they are blind or deaf or crippled or deficient in reasoning, the wayfarer, the one who is stranded, or the wealth you spend for the upkeep of your parents and for the well-being of your kids and kings. This is the expenditure that is defined as expenditure made in the cause of Allah. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses a little item that we are familiar with, a grain of corn. It's a very pervasive and dominant item in the world. Whether it is a grain of corn or beans or barley or wheat, whichever we want to use. The grain of corn was used in this instance because it's one of the products that the people of Arabia at the time of Revelation were familiar with. It could also be a piece of yam or cassava, which is very dominant in the African region. It could be something else. If the Quran were revealed in Africa, for example, maybe they would have mentioned cassava or rice or anything like that. But because the grains were very popular in the Arabian Peninsula at that time, like corn, like barley, like wheat, and so on and so forth, there were very many. That's why Allah uses this item to show us an example. But it means more than just a grain of corn or barley or wheat. In today's world, it means whatever has value. Anything you keep by way of financial value you have, and you will spend it, and it's a means of, buying and selling. That's your own grain. Those who have money in investment, those who have money in real estate, those who have money by way of income from their salaries, those who have money from trading or selling, whatever, or manufacturing, that's your own grain. That's your own grain. If you were to spend that to help somebody, then what you get is 700 times what you have spent. This is the message Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to draw from it. Because you don't want to limit it to the fact that Allah talks about grain here, therefore it's talking of agriculture. No, it means more than that. Even the modern portfolios of economic well-being are also included. But take a look at it critically. If we were all, as a rich people, to help those who are around us in the way this verse has described, you think there will be poverty in the world? If each person were to stretch out to help those who deserve help as defined, the answer is no. But when you look across the world, you see philosophers, pundits, and economists, each one coming up with all kinds of theories of how to distribute wealth. At the end of it, all those wealth get concentrated in a few people while the majority of the people suffer. There is an ongoing war between those who call themselves capitalists and those who call themselves socialists and others in between them. But at the end of the day, none is as fair as what has been recommended in the Quran. If everyone were to have a fair shake of what is available, then of course there will be good life for all of us. My dear brothers, my dear sisters. But if you were to actually obey this commandment and spend as Allah has ordered, then there's something you expect. Your wealth will get purified. Your expenditure will be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as something you did to please Him. And whatever you do to please Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward that person. In the next verse following this verse, Allah says, الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله ثم لا يتبعون ما أنفقوا منا ولا أذى لهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Those who spend intentionally to please Allah, for these categories of people we have mentioned, but they didn't go about boasting about it, advertising it in the pages of the newspaper or television or in social media. And they don't also go about teasing at those people who receive it as a reminder, injuring their feelings. Once your expenditure is free of these two dangerous elements, then of course, Allah says when you meet Him on the day of accountability, there will be no cause for you to fear and there will be no cause for you to be depressed or sad. And dear brothers and dear sisters, which means therefore that there is a bad way to spend and there is a good way to spend. But unfortunately, many people who are wealthy don't spend to help those who are in need. What they do is to seek outrageous pleasure for themselves and for their family members and concentrate the wealth in their hands. They take joy in seeing other people suffer or deprived. That's why the world we live today is full of inequities as well as disharmonies between people who live together. We ask Allah to make it easy for us. When it comes to rewards, everything we do for the sake of Allah, in the hadith narrated by Abdullah ibn Abbas, the Allah anihuma, the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam said, reward for every good deeds done in the name of Allah is a minimum of 10. And that reward will go up to 700. And it may please Allah to even make it more than that. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, when you go to the market and invest, those of you who love investment so much because you love multiplications, and you invest and get 700 times to what you invested, will you say it's a bad trade? The answer is no. That's why whatever you do for the sake of Allah, it is tijaratan la tabur. It's a trade that will not fail. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if we spend in His way, then He will multiply for us. So, which means whatever you spend to help your parents, help the handicapped in society, help those who are stranded, or whatever you spend to help to finance, jihad for the sake of Allah, training people to understand the deen and going on Hajj, all those things you spend to please Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, indeed, there will be multiplication down the road. Those of you who love figures, therefore, should expect that there will be increase for you. And that increase is not limited to this world, but it's also going to be a major increase for you when you meet Allah on the day of accountability. My dear brothers and dear sisters, as I said, There are those who don't spend at all out of covetousness and greed and avarice. There are others, when they spend, they turn around and make mistake by messing it up, by following what they have spent with manna, well, as that is, reminder, teasing are those who receive the expenditure or boasting about it. We are adnas, like somebody who spent for people to see me, boasting about it. That's a very serious handicap. That's why the next presentation we're going to focus on that. What is the implication of following your spending with manna, well, as with reminder and injury to the one you spend for, and for boasting about it? How does it destroy your expenditure and even destroy you in the long run? We need to know about it. So what about somebody who spent genuinely in the way of Allah? For these categories of people we have mentioned, how does it enhance his life? How does it translate into benefit for him in this dunya and the akhirah? Again, we are going to bring it to him in the next subsequent presentations. So stay tuned with the House of God. We want to make it easy for all of us to understand these messages in a deeper manner, because there is a definite message in all of them. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam encouraged us to spend and spend regularly for those who deserve to be spent for. And he says, Man nakasa amalu sadaka. Wealth does not get decreased as a result of you helping somebody by way of charity or sadaka. No, indeed, sadaka is a way of multiplying your wealth. And dear brothers, my dear sister, let us encourage ourselves to try and spend and help those who are in need, especially beginning from those who are around us. Just imagine, how comfortable are you when you are okay and you go to sleep while your neighbor is not okay? He goes to sleep with an empty stomach, without food in it, without hope for tomorrow. It doesn't feel good. There's no humanity there. That's why we need to spend to help those who are in need. And when we do so, we are not just pleasing those we have spent for, we're actually pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at the end of it, we are the one who will reap the benefit. Allah says, those who do wrong, Allah does not wrong them. They wrong themselves because they are given exactly what they earn. But for those who do right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wala khawfun alayhim, wala hum yahzanun. They will not have cause to fear when they meet Allah, and they will not have cause to be sad. We ask Allah to count us among those who will not have cause to be sad when we meet Allah on the day of accountability. Therefore, we encourage you, just as we encourage ourselves, to try to be generous to help those who are in need. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت الغفور الكريم سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك الحمد لله